talking Sister Death, and this is actually the English translation of this Spanish language movie. Now this is actually a prequel movie to the 2017 movie Veronica by the same director. Now Veronica was kind of touted to be one of the most scary films, you know, that was made in that kind of era, and I watched it. It was pretty good. I didn't think it was that scary or anything. It's basically a possession movie, and there was a kind of a supporting character in that, essentially this blind kind of nun, experienced nun, who helps our main sort of character, but she's nicknamed Sister Death. And this is effectively her prequel story. So it takes place, I think it's the late 1930s, and our kind of Sister Narcisa, who is later known as Sister Death in the Veronica movie, is essentially a novice nun. Now she has had some kind of exposure through an alleged miracle and things like this kind of in her when she was a child. So she's basically coming to this kind of convent to you know, continue her studies, etc. And as the film progresses, we learn this convent has a kind of secret that is being kept by other nuns, essentially. Now I won't go any further than that in regards to the plot, but Sister Narcisa, who is, you know, maybe has some gifts, you might say, seems to be able to connect spiritually to what's kind of going on and ultimately uncover the truth about what has happened. What will happen? You will have to watch the movie and find out. So let us discuss. Now this movie is quite lauded. It's, you know, the reviews I've seen have all been very positive and everything like that. So let me say what I think I liked in this movie. Now, like the first film, I would say, Veronica, this movie is a well put together movie on a kind of a technical level. You know, it has this real period feel to it. Now, again, it's taken place, I believe, in the late 1930s. But it feels like you're genuinely watching, you know, it captures that period is kind of what I'm getting at. So you get that feeling of, you know, a well-produced period kind of drama. The kind of the set decoration, the location shooting, the way the actresses carry themselves and their performances, costuming. It does look authentic, I would say, and the movie has a definite dramatic feel to it. So you feel like this movie primarily feels more like a drama, more so than the horror. There's definitely a point in the film where it switches more to an overt horror, but I would say 2/3 of this movie plays a lot more like a drama with some light supernatural overtones, and then kind of goes into more overt horror and that kind of that last half hour. But the acting, I think, when you have a dramatic style film, I think one of the key components here is to have actors that are, you know, are good at kind of delivering a dramatic performance. And although I sometimes find it difficult to really judge foreign language movies, because obviously, you know, you can't 100% kind of tell what is being said in, you know, the kind of original language and stuff, and how the kind of the emotions that are displayed relate to that. You know, from what I can see and what I can judge, and I feel the performances are good by the cast here, kind of universally. We have a reasonable amount of kind of child actors here, and I think even they do a kind of a good job. And there is an interesting kind of mystery. I mean, we see some kind of supernatural stuff going on in the movie, and it's kind of like you don't really know what's actually happening and how it kind of relates to Sister Narcisa and you know, what she's kind of got to do with it, if anything. So I think it sets up certainly an interesting kind of you know, supernatural mystery, so to speak. And then when we get to our kind of our third act, this is when I would suggest you get the majority of the actual horror stuff. I mean, I don't think it kind of goes into full-on mega scary mode, but there's some interesting iconography. There's some interesting things done here that you know, that involve the kind of the religious kind of settings that we have in this kind of convent, and kind of the paraphernalia that is associated with the church and things like that. So I do feel there's some interesting kind of visuals kind of going on there, although I don't really feel this movie ever really gets particularly kind of air quotes scary, if that makes sense. So it feels like a decently made supernatural drama, which leads me on to maybe what I think doesn't work quite as much. Now, like I've said, this movie, from what I can see, is quite well lauded. And I think perhaps because it plays a lot more like a dramatic role, people are looking at the artistic kind of side of things and going, yes, it's a very well-made film. And yes, I would say at a technical level that is true. But for me, I thought the pacing of this movie was a problem. Now, it is a slow burn film, and there's nothing wrong with having a slow burn film, and those things can work. But I didn't really feel like there was as much story here to kind of like stretch out that first hour. Because you get such a kind of like an amount of exposition ultimately and kind of backstory crammed in the last 20-25 minutes, to be honest with you. You know, I feel this movie's pacing is very uneven, because you feel like there's the first hour, you know, if you're looking at forward plot momentum, not massive amounts of it. You know, you feel like the plot is going at a very slow pace. We're really not gaining a huge ground in regards to the narrative. And then we get to that kind of like that last 20-25 minutes, and you just get bam, loads of stuff kind of like, you know, the floodgates open, so to speak. So I gotta be honest with you, I felt like the pacing of this movie was uneven, and it ultimately, I would even say it borders on a little dull in that kind of first hour, because you don't really know what's going on. You know, there's some type of supernatural kind of stuff going on, and if you're familiar with the movie Veronica, you know ultimately that certainly in regards to this nun's eyesight, you might have an idea about what things might happen, but to me it was kind of a little bit too slow for that first kind of hour. I didn't think it kind of moved the needle in regards to story all that much. And then when we get to our kind of more horror-centric kind of portion of the story, I mean, again, there's some interesting ideas in regards to what we see on screen, but I don't think it's as visually as striking as it could have been. I certainly really didn't feel this movie was scary in any way. I mean, Veronica was kind of touted as one of the most scary movies of its time, as I've mentioned. I didn't think it was all that scary, but it's scarier than this. So this one was a relatively kind of light horror. It's an interesting kind of mystery, but I didn't feel it needed to be quite as kind of stretched. I think it needed to have a little bit more kind of going on, and the elements that were shown to us maybe in the last half an hour, I feel could have been pulled in earlier and kind of expanded upon to make this more of an even film. I have to be honest with you, I think this is a technically well-made film, but I think the script certainly is weaker here, and it could have been a lot stronger. And ultimately, this movie comes across as okay, and a little bit kind of average, if you want my honest opinion. Now, I may be somewhat of a contrarian in regards to the bulk of the reviews here, but I have to say I think this movie was just okay. It was okay for a kind of a supernatural mystery, but I didn't feel it exceeded any kind of like areas, to be honest with you, outside of some technical elements. So I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. I think it's okay. You know, it's an okay slow burn kind of mystery, but it's just nothing better than that, if you want my honest opinion. So it's 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? This or Veronica? Please do let me know, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.